Hello, this is Joe Pryor, the virtual real estate team in Oklahoma, where we specialize in new residential construction for investors in the Oklahoma City and the Tulsa markets. You know, I deal with a lot of investors out of California and Washington State, New York, New Jersey, all over the place. And one of the questions that I especially get from the Californians is, what is your eviction policies in the Oklahoma market? And this is where we really exceed all your dreams when it comes to evictions. Because if you're in New York or California, you know that in some cases, and I've heard these horror stories, 6 months, a year down the road, you may be in court. This is not the case in Oklahoma. Your home is your castle in Oklahoma, and if you own it, you have tremendous rights. So I work very directly with our property management on this. We have very few evictions. In fact, you'd be shocked at how low it is. We'll talk about this with a meeting to set up your program, but essentially, here's how it works. All leases, the rent is due on the 1st. You are late on the 2nd. The property manager files on you on the 5th with the courts. By the 14th or 15th, you are in court and the property manager sends an attorney. And by the way, this is not very expensive. So you'll talk to our property manager and he'll tell you all about it. But you're there, and the judge, the first question they typically ask the tenant who's in court is, are you late on your rent? Boom, that is it. If you're late on the rent, you haven't dealt with the property manager at all, the judge says you need to vacate now. So that's basically 2 weeks from the time the rent is due. Now, let's say you don't leave. Well, then a week later, it's automatic. The sheriff comes to that property and changes the locks. So in other words, you can't get into that property whatsoever. You leave your stuff there, too bad, all right? Which gives you a leverage if you're the landlord in terms of, hey, I want my stuff. Well, you owe us money. So our eviction policy is very favorable. This is something that we don't like to do. We like to vet tenants properly. And that's why since April of 2020, when we started worrying about COVID, that we've only had just maybe a couple of evictions since April of 2020. And this means that our property management company, not my company, but the company we use, is doing a proper job of getting people in properly, making sure you've got the right person. But if worse comes to worse, because no system is perfect, if we do make an eviction, it's very, very fast. And this is to your advantage.